What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So in front of me, you'll see I've got a couple of keys. These keys were sent to me by my friends at Radiodity. Full disclosure, I did not pay for these keys. They sent them to me and asked me to review them, and I was more than happy to do so. As primarily a CW operator, I'm happy to try any key that anybody sends me. I'm going to give you my honest opinion on these two keys. We'll talk a little bit about who I think they're for, price, whether I would buy them or not. Spoiler alert, one of these I would buy, the other one I wouldn't, and I'll talk about why, and again, they're personal preference things. But in front of me, I've got a Xiegu VK5 straight key and a VK6 set of iambic paddles. And I know other people have already done reviews on these keys. I've had them for about a month and a half, maybe, but I wanted to spend some time with them first. Before I did a review, I wanted to use these a little bit and get a feel for them and what they were like to send on and what their strengths and weaknesses were, you know, how I liked the adjustment, how I liked how they sent, things like that. So let me get the straight key out of the way here, and we'll start with the iambic paddles. Let me unplug it from the radio here. So this key is interesting. It's a little odd looking. It's not bad. Both of these are built the same basic way. They're aluminum. And they have sort of, I don't know if they're like they're bead blasted or then anodized. It's hard to tell. It's sort of a rough finish. It's nice. The posts, I believe, are brass, but don't quote me on that. They look like brass. The contacts, I believe, on the arm side are brass, and I think on this side are steel, which, whatever, it works. The arms ride in bearings. They feel quite good. The magnetic return on this is an odd setup. So there is a screw that runs all the way through from this arm through this arm to this big nut. Now, it is not actually attached to this arm. It's only attached to this arm. On this side, you have a magnet and a steel insert in the nut, and that's what gives us our magnetic tension. And I adjust that by moving this in and out away from that or closer to that magnet. It's a weird setup, but it works quite well. It sort of floats there. This key feels fairly good overall. Like I said, it's aluminum. It's got carbon fiber finger pieces. It's not a bad key. The adjustments are a little strange. So it's got your screw adjustment with a lock nut, but it also has a lock set screw, which is sort of redundant. You know, if you look at, for instance, like my UR5CDX, it has the same setup here, but it doesn't have the set screw. But it works, and it's relatively decent to send on. Let me plug it in. And oh. So I just sent CQ K2EJT, although I screwed my own call sign up. But then if you were able to copy what I sent after that, I said this key is too light. My one major gripe with this key is the weight. So like I said, it's aluminum. Now, there's this really grippy rubber pad on the bottom. And if you take that rubber pad off, underneath there is a steel block, which adds some weight. I'll tell you how I know what's under here in a minute. But let me show you what I mean by too light. So let me raise the camera up so you can see this scale. So I've got a food scale here. We're going to turn it on. We've got it on grams. So this key is 549 grams. Okay. Now, to put that in some perspective, here's a Bengali Expedition. 1,327 grams. That's my major gripe with this key, is it is just too light. It moves around a lot, and I have to hold on to it to send. It's not horrible. If you're real light on the key, it doesn't move around a lot, but I tend to be a little ham-fisted, and it slides around quite a bit on me. So that's one thing you really need to consider with this key, is it is a little too light, at least in my personal opinion. The other odd thing about it is the shape of the finger pieces. So you'll see they sort of are concave. And if you look at the Bengali or my UR5CDX, they are convex. They sort of curve out away from the key. And that is much more comfortable to send on and intuitive to send on. It feels a little, it looks cool, but it feels a little odd because you're missing that mass right where you would expect a key. Now, I key down low normally on the paddles, so I'm down here most of the time, but if you come up at all, that finger piece kind of curves in, and it is a little odd. So that is something you do need to consider if you purchase one of these. Now, let me talk about my experience with this key as far as the actual build quality is concerned. The first one of these I got worked when I took it out of the box, and then one paddle stopped working. And I did everything. I fiddled with it and messed with it and couldn't get it to work. I took this bottom sticky piece off to see if it was a wiring issue. I couldn't figure anything out. So I emailed Radioddity and I sent them a video of what was going on, and they immediately just sent me a new one. So they were really good in that aspect. Their customer service was great. This second key works flawlessly. I've had zero issues with it. But I did want to say that upfront full disclosure that I did have that issue with this key. If you are looking for an inexpensive iambic paddle though, this is a good option. These are, I think right now, let me double check, these are $79.99 on Radioddity. That's a pretty good deal for this. That's half as much as my UR5 CDX, and it's probably, what, a third of what that Bengali cost. So if you're on a budget and you're looking for a halfway decent iambic paddle for your shack, this is a reasonable option, all right? Again, it's not gonna be up to the level of those other keys, but the price isn't either, right? So if you're looking for a budget option that will get the job done, this is a fairly nice key, right? Just understand the drawbacks. It is a little light, and there are some quirks to it, all right? Now, let's bring this VK5 in. So this VK5 is odd. It looks really nice. It is exceedingly light though. How light? Let me unplug it from the radio here. And this key is even lighter. This key is 403 grams, and you go, oh, that's way too light. But here's the thing. It's not. This key was designed really well. If you look at the center of the knob, it's directly over the edge of the key. And because it's designed that way, so this key is actually really nice to send on, and that's what I just said. I said, okay, this key is nice to send on. It doesn't move around. It feels really nice. The adjustments are really nice. The knob feels fantastic. It's sort of like a navy flameproof knob. You know, it's got the knob and then the shelf. It's very nice to send on. It looks nice. The adjustments are nice. Like I said, it's very light, but it's a non-issue. Because of the way it's designed, it doesn't move at all. I've used this key a ton, and it is rock solid. It doesn't move around. It feels good. I sent that real fast. That was probably sloppy, but I was doing that on purpose just to show you it doesn't move around. You know, it's a pretty nice key, and it feels nice. It looks nice. It's $69.99. If you're looking for a decent straight key that isn't going to break the bank, that feels nice to send on, that you can get adjusted up. I'm real picky about how keys are adjusted. This one's super tight right now. All right, I like my keys real tight. I can get these real tight without having any issues. Some keys you can't get real tight or they hang up. These don't. So, you know, this key, like I said, it's very light, like it's oddly light, but it works really well. I think it looks good. It feels good to send on. So yeah, both of these keys, both of these keys get the job done. I think if it was me and I was going to spend my money, I would definitely have no qualm spending the $69.99 on this guy. This is far and away better than any other key in that price point, unless you're buying a used key off eBay or something. And then, you know, if you're buying like a SpeedX or a J37 or a J38 or something like that, you know, you don't really know what you're getting until you've got it in your hand. Sometimes those things are gorgeous. Sometimes they're a pile that need to be rebuilt. So if you want something that just works, throw it on the desk and go. and it isn't going to break the bank, this is a great option. So would I buy this guy? It's hard to say. I mean, if I was just starting out and I wanted a shack key that wasn't going to break the bank, yeah, I might. It wouldn't be my first choice, but again, it's not a bad key. Would I buy this guy? Yes, I would. This key feels great. It looks great. I'd have no issues with this key. Again, it's kind of a personal preference thing, and it's entirely up to you. But for me, both of these keys kind of hit a sweet spot as far as price is concerned. You know, they're not super cheap like some of your 3D printed keys, but there aren't any 3D printed parts on these. They're all aluminum and steel. And in the case, I don't know what this knob is. It feels like maybe Delrin. And these are actually carbon fiber. These aren't just carbon fiber look. They're actual carbon fiber finger pieces on this guy. So you're getting a decent amount of key for what you pay for. Like I said, really my only gripe with this key is it's just too light. That's really my only thing with this key is if it weighed more so it didn't move around as easy, this would be a better key. And I would also like to see them, if they do a second version of this, don't scallop this inwards. Just have it bulge out ever so slightly. All right, so like I said, if I put that Bengali next to it, right, you can see how that kind of bulges out. That's a much more ergonomic feeling finger piece. These look cool, but they don't feel as good to key on. So if Xiegu, if you're listening, add some weight to this key. All right, make the base thicker maybe, or put more steel inserts in there, or even make the base out of steel. And then change that from being concave to convex, and you've got yourself a winner. Like I said, the adjustments are a little funky, and it's the same way on both keys, but it does have both that lock knob and that set screw. But that's redundant, but it doesn't hurt anything. It's just you need to be aware of that. And you don't really need to tighten those set screws down. I mean, if you tighten the adjustment screw and then that lock knob down, they don't move. I've had no problems with either one of these keys changing adjustment or losing adjustment. Like I said, the magnetic tension on this looks weird, but it works really well. It's an interesting solution as opposed to having magnets on both sides and metal on both sides and whatever. It's just got that singular magnet and that metal insert in the knob that kind of floats on that left paddle. It's an interesting setup, but it works quite well. So at any rate, everybody, this is a fairly short video just to kind of give you my thoughts on these two keys. Again, these are entry-level keys. You know, it's hard to compare them to something like a Bengali or an N3ZN or something like that because, you know, they're kind of in a different league. But if you're just getting into CW or you're on a budget and you're looking for a key that won't break the bank, that'll get the job done, either of these will work. I personally think the straight key is a better key. But at the end of the day, they'll both get the job done and the price is very reasonable. So again, shout out to Radiotity for sending me these keys. I really do appreciate it. If you have any questions about these keys, go ahead and leave them in the comments. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I really do appreciate it. And until next time, as always, 73.